Well, hey guys, today I got a little issue with my Cummins diesel generator here. Like I said in one of my earlier videos, it runs once a week on Saturday for about 15 minutes to check itself. And I wasn't at home this Saturday when it ran, but sometime this week I came and opened up the panel here and just looked inside, and I had a high temperature alarm here, and when anything alarms, it trips the main breaker. So I thought that was a little unusual. So I checked the coolant level in the radiator, and it was fine. So I started it up and let it run for about an hour, and it got up to 175 degrees, which is where it normally runs, and it stayed there. So I thought, well, that's kind of unusual, but so I shut it off, and I went around here to where the radiator is. I've got this guard off. Normally there's a guard right here. I took that off. But I felt the top radiator hose, and it was pretty hot. I would guess 175 degrees or so. But then I felt the bottom radiator hose, and it was cool. Not even warm, just cool. I said, well, that doesn't sound right. And, of course, there's a spring in here, so I can't squeeze it to see if there's any water in it. And with the guard on here, I couldn't stick my hand in there. So I felt up under here and felt the bottom of the radiator tank, and it was cool, cold, in fact. And the top radiator tank was hot. So I said, well, it still doesn't sound right. I know the radiator hose should be cooler on the bottom than the top, but not cold. So I do have a drain here from a radiator with a valve inside, so I can just drain the coolant. So I opened that up and let some coolant out, and even the coolant was cold. So I said, well, that's not a good thing. So I called a good friend of mine. Okay, so I'm back. I had a Federal Express delivery here, so had to go get that. But like I said, I opened that up, let some antifreeze out, and felt it, and it was cool. I didn't think that was a good sign. So I talked to a good friend of mine who's a professional mechanic, Robbie. He's the guy that owns that 70 Boss 302 Mustang, which you've seen in some of my other videos. And I told him I thought it either had to be a plugged up radiator, a bad water pump, or a bad thermostat. And he tended to agree. And of course, to get that radiator out is a real problem. I have to take off this load center off of here, take the front end off. This is heavy. I probably have to use my front end loader to lift it. And then to get to the water pump and everything, I got to take the radiator out anyway. So if I take the radiator out, it's silly not to change the water pump and the thermostat at the same time. But he suggested something before I do all of that. Pretty good idea. He said maybe I should drain the antifreeze, disconnect the lower hose and block it off with something, fill it up with water, and then disconnect the lower hose and see how fast the water drains out. And that'll tell me if the radiator is in fact clogged up or draining well or whatever. And I really won't waste anything. I won't have to pull anything down other than take that water pump lower radiator hose off. So that's what I'm going to do here today, and see how that goes. And I'll show you guys what I'm doing. But that's probably what my plan is here for a while. Well, a few things I'm going to do to drain the antifreeze out. I put this little adapter on here so that I can put my bucket under there. I don't know if you can see, but there's a valve here, and it's in the closed position on the bottom radiator tank. And it runs out here because there's no way you'd be able to drain it effectively without making a mess. So this was a pretty good design there. I'm going to put my generator in stop so that it can't automatically start up while I'm working on it. And also, I have a percolator heater, which you can hear running right now. That's it right there. And I've replaced that in one of my earlier videos, but basically it's just a little electric heater that circulates water through the water jacket, heats it up, and it's heating right now. So obviously I don't want that heating when I have antifreeze drained out of it. So I'm just going to unplug that. And that's my ammeter that shows that thing's running, so it's gone to 0. So my percolator is off. And then I'm going to open the radiator cap up here. That way it'll drain well. Let me go in here and get my buckets. Holds 7 gallons of antifreeze. So 2 5-gallon buckets ought to be good, and I don't expect to get all 7 gallons out anyway. So we'll put that there. And open this valve. And there it goes. As you can see, it's green antifreeze, which is the wrong antifreeze for a diesel. But this antifreeze has been in here since I've owned the generator, so it I don't think that's the problem I'm having. I know you're supposed to use a diesel-rated antifreeze to prevent cavitation, and it's not cavitation like we think of it, at least that's the way it was explained to me. This is a wet sleeve diesel engine, which means that the coolant is right on the cylinder sleeve on the inside, and the vibration and the shock from the diesel, firing, creates microscopic bubbles in the antifreeze, and making the bubbles doesn't transfer the heat as well. So that's the cavitation they're talking about. Maybe I'm wrong. That's the way it was explained to me. If anybody has a better explanation, you can leave it in the comments and I'll share that. But that was my explanation of why you should use the diesel rated antifreeze. But like I said, I've had this thing since like 2007, something like that. So it's never had a problem until now, so I'm really not thinking that's the problem. But when I refill it, after I do anything, I will use the diesel antifreeze. So we'll let this drain, and then I'll pull off that lower radiator hose and fill it up with water, and we'll just see how fast it drains out. Well, it finished draining here, and I'm going to guess that between the 2 buckets, I'm right at about 7 gallons there, which is, what it holds, so that's good. So that drained well. What I'm going to do next is take off that lower radiator hose here. I got the clamp off already. I put this plastic down here. I'm hoping I can keep most of the water from going down inside there. If it does, it does. That's, way it goes. But anyway, I'm going to pull that off and see what comes out. Then I'm going to try to find something that'll fit in here to block this hose up, and then I'll take the garden hose and fill the radiator and pull that plug out and see how fast the water runs out. Okay, I started running the hose in there, and as you can see, water's coming out. So I'm going to shut that off and let the radiator. Okay, the radiator's full. And there's a little bit draining out of the engine, which to be expected, backflowing through the other circulating hoses here. I'm going to pull this cap out if I can with one hand here. Yeah. Try to get it with a screwdriver. Well, I would say that's pretty conclusive. That the water's running out of here. Well, as you can see, I got water flowing out. I got the hose running in there, and it's running out pretty steadily here. So I'm thinking the radiator's flowing okay. So we maybe have another problem. Okay, I'm using my handy dandy Harbor Freight drill operated pump here to pump the old antifreeze back into the radiator, since I really can't get up there to get to it. This works perfectly. May take a few minutes, but it's going in there. And I know this is the wrong antifreeze, but I'm not going to replace the antifreeze because I'm probably going to pull it down and replace the water pump and the thermostat, and maybe still take the radiator to have it rotted out and cleaned out. But at least I know from my earlier test that the radiator is flowing. So we'll get this antifreeze back in here, and then I'll start it up and, you know, burp the air out of it and get it running and get it up to temperature and see how it does today. I had to have the radiator topped off with the old antifreeze. It's full. I left the radiator cap off. I'm going to plug in my percolator heater and have that start circulating water again. And you can see my heater is drawing current. You'll be able to hear it here in a second. Yep. You can hear it bubbling the water. I'm going to feel this pipe here. Yep, it's getting warm. This is the outlet pipe and the inlet pipe. It just uses convection to flow, and it's working. Yep, this pipe's getting hot now. So I'll let that run until it shuts off. And I know that there's water circulating in the water jacket that's warm. And then I'm going to start this guy up and let it run for a little bit. Then I'll put the radiator cap on it after hopefully some air gets out of it. And we'll see how the temperature gauge works. Well, my percolator heater is shut off, so I'm going to start this guy up. I'm going to let the water circulate a little bit to hopefully get any air out before I put the radiator cap on. You can see the water temperature gauge is still below 100, so I just stuck my finger in the radiator and the water's still full. So I'm going to let it run a few minutes until the gauge starts to climb, and then I'm going to put the radiator cap on. This thing's been running about 20 minutes now. It's right at 175, just like it was before. So I felt the hoses. Upper one's hot, lower one's cold, just like before. So I'm kind of perplexed here, guys. I could probably use some help in the comment section about, do you think I'm chasing my tail here and there's nothing really wrong? Or should I investigate further? I'm down to where I'm thinking maybe the water pump is not circulating and it's only circulating through the water jacket through the percolator. But anyway, it's about 90 degrees here. Feels like 100 according to the weather app, but of course machinery doesn't feel like anything, so it's 90 degrees to machinery. But I would think if it was going to overheat, it should be overheating. So it bothers me that I had an overheating alarm last week, just running normally. So anyway, guys, if you have any tips or ideas or telling me I'm crazy chasing this thing, leave it in the comments for me if you would, and like and subscribe as well. Thanks.